And thank you for joining us for this conversation about homelessness and housing solutions in Olmsted County. We're proud to be a part of this. There are some exciting things happening right now, and we wanted to tell our media partners what we've been working on so diligently over the past few years and kind of what is down the road for Olmsted County and helping with these solutions in our area. We want to thank our guests, members of the media, for attending. We know your jobs are very important in our community, and we appreciate all that you do to share the good work of Olmsted County. We do want to make some notes that during this meeting, you are open to use the chat feature in Teams to relay any questions that you might have for our presenters. I'll do my best to keep track of those and present those. As well as following the meeting, we'd like to invite you over to the ECHO Center, which is new directly next door to the Rochester Community Warming Center, for a brief tour. We'll have some representatives from the county there if you want to do further interviews. And then, of course, remember to bring your photography equipment as well. So with that, once again, welcome. I'd like to start with introductions. My name is Rachel Wick. I'm a communications specialist for Olmsted County. And next we'll go with Mr. David Dunn. If you want to introduce yourself, Dave, and give a brief description of your job with the county. And then you can unmute as well.
Thanks for the reminder. I'm so
Sure thing.
It's only been, 18, 19 months that we've been doing this. So one of these days we're going to figure it out. Good morning, everyone. I'm Dave Dunn. I serve as the housing director for Olmsted County. It is a position I've held now for the past 5 years. And with that, oversee our efforts to prevent and end homelessness and also the efforts of our Housing and Redevelopment Authority. Thank you all for spending some time with us today and your continued, you don't see us on camera. Oh, because it's, I don't know why.
Let's see, let's stop one moment, Dave. So Gretchen, do you see anybody on camera or just Dave?
Oh.
Okay.
So, yeah,
well,
I think it's probably the going from the gallery, it doesn't get everybody. And so if you go to large gallery, it gets everybody. And you might have to actually first jump to the together mode. So if you click under, here's your IT moment of the morning. Click under your 3 dots, as for those of you who are on the call. If you go down, it will automatically have a check mark on gallery. If you go down, unfortunately, large gallery doesn't work right away. So first you have to do the little quick fix of going to together mode.
Mm-hmm.
And that puts all of us in a bunch of seats next to each other, which if that's how you'd like to record the meeting, that might be even a little bit more fun.
That is kind of fun, isn't it?
And then you should be able to go back to gallery or large gallery, and it should have all of us in the picture.
Perfect. Thank you, Dave, for that. We do appreciate that. I know technology can sometimes be the bane of our existence, but we're happy to have it in this age right now. Let's go back, Dave, if you could one more time introduce yourself and your position with the county. Thank you.
Yeah, good morning, everyone. I'm Dave Dunn. I serve as the Olmsted County Housing Director. I have been in this position for the last 5 years, and in our team, really, we do 2 very significant areas that we work in. One is our efforts that we're talking about today to prevent and end homelessness. The other one is really our efforts around the Housing and Redevelopment Authority. So the work that we do to create and preserve affordable housing in Olmsted County.
Thank you, Dave. Next, Commissioner Stephanie Podulke.
There. Good morning, everyone. I'm Stephanie Podulke. I'm a county commissioner for District 1. So there's 7 of us, and we make decisions about policy and the budget. And I've been on the board for about 10 years. And I'm very, very proud of what HRA has done and accomplished. It feels like my baby. So welcome, everyone.
Thank you, Commissioner. Jacob Radtke.
Hi, good morning. My name is Jacob Radtke, and I am a social worker on Olmsted County's Housing Stability Team. I have been with Olmsted County going on 5 years in January, and for most of the time I was a social worker at a permanent supportive housing facility called the Francis, which is located downtown and serves chronically homeless individuals. And just this past October, this month, I switched over into a full-time outreach position and am now located at the ECHO Center.
Thank you, Jacob. Mary O'Neill.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Mary O'Neill. I am the program manager for the Housing Stability Team. I have been with Olmsted County since 2000, so 21 years, and moved over to the housing department from Adult and Family Services right before COVID hit in February of 2020.
Thank you, Mary. And finally, Dana Sigrist.
Good morning, I'm Dana Sigrist. I am an executive support here in the housing department, and my job is to support these fine folks any way that we can and help get them what they need to do their jobs and their outreach as much as they can.
Dana, thank you. All right, so we'd like to make this open conversation among our presenters because we have a lot of information to share, and it's something so many of us hold close to our hearts, which is helping members of our community live better and stronger lives. So something that I know the media is familiar with is what our community went through a couple of years ago in 2019. You might remember images and people sleeping inside the skyways in downtown Rochester. And that's really when the story of homelessness in our community and the issue with it came to light, and Olmsted County really jumping in to find solutions quickly, because we all know homelessness has been an issue in our community for years, but it just seems to be, really brought to light in the midst of the housing crisis, in the midst of COVID, and it's just kind of evolved from there. So how do we evolve with it? On that note, I'd like to start with Dave Dunn, who can kind of give us a brief history of the county's position in kind of the plan of action when 2019 happened and how we were going to help the people in our community. David? And you can unmute as well.
Good morning again. And yeah, I think before we kind of talk about where we're at and where we're going, I always think it is good just to take a moment to talk a little bit about where we've been. One of the things that, as long as I have worked for Olmsted County, that we have really tried to focus on are how do we provide the proper level of supports to people to allow them to thrive. That whether that means if you're a family in crisis, whether you're an individual that's struggling, whether you're someone that's dealing with substance abuse or mental illness. And that's really been kind of one of our core attributes now for, the last decades probably plus. And so when it really comes to those experiencing homelessness in our community, as we saw the situation evolve a couple of years back, we realized that the efforts that we had been doing needed to be probably upped a little bit and modified. So previously we have, Jacob just a little bit ago talked about his work at the Francis, which is a 17-unit building downtown that serves people who are chronically homeless. That building's been around since 2002. So it's not that we weren't doing these efforts, but in spite of them, what we were seeing is that rise in people essentially occupying the skyways and other parts that really aren't meant for human habitation. And so as that kind of came to light through 2018 and 2019, and we really saw this becoming a larger community issue, one of the things that we realized, I think, within Olmsted County is that it was time to probably modify our response and really try to, one, kind of align resources, and two, see where the gaps are in the system and see what we could do to really have an impact. So kind of based on some of that work and based on understanding the needs that maybe were changing at the time and the increase in homelessness that we were seeing in our community, the first thing that we really did was we created the Housing Stability Team. So prior to February of 2020, if you were to ask someone in Olmsted County, if you were to call Olmsted County and say, who do I talk to about homelessness? The answer would be, it depends. It depends on if you want to talk to the housing department side of it, if you want to talk to adult and family services, whether you want to talk to administration, because all of us had different pieces of that puzzle and different staff that were working on it and trying to do our best, but maybe weren't communicating and working together and aligning our resources as effectively as we could. So one of those first kind of significant changes that we made back in February of 2020 in response to a lot of these efforts was really trying to say, okay, we're going to create a team and bring those county resources together and bring them under one roof. So then we have the opportunity to collaborate, to work together, and to be nimble and understand situations more quickly. And then also for the community to have one place to contact when there was needs and one place to call. And so that was really that creation of the housing stability team, and that was really kind of the why behind it. And I know we'll talk more about it in a little bit and kind of what we're doing and the impacts of that. But really, because of that change and because of kind of where we were, we as a county saw that we had to modify our response.
Thank you, David. And Commissioner Podulke, you've been a part of this process as well from a commissioner's standpoint, and how maybe your constituents have, addressed comments to you. What has this process been like over the last few years?
Yes, I've lived in Rochester for almost 50 years now, but in echoing on what Dave had said about looking back at the past, when I think about that, I always think about those side rear view mirrors on our cars that distort things a little, but always have a message at the bottom that says, images in this mirror are closer than they may appear. And I think we can look back at the past, but it's still right around us. Many people are just one flat tire away from financial ruin. There are so many people that live on the edge, and it could be any of us that are homeless. And I think that was a lesson we all had to learn. It isn't just any a group of people. It could be anyone who suddenly finds themselves on a financial cliff, and one thing leads to another. So when homelessness came into our view, because I think a lot of us just didn't want to see it, and when we were forced to see it, we at the county board level had to figure out what exactly was our responsibility in this whole picture of homelessness. And we decided that our responsibility was to find homeless people, assess them, and find permanent housing for them, because that's how people get their lives back on track. And if you know where you're going to put your head at night and you have a place to keep your stuff, which is what our homes are, you can start to work on your relationships and on all the other things that go into having a good life. Otherwise, you're only thinking about how am I going to stay safe and where am I going to put my head tonight. And but our other responsibility was to not have people suffer. We don't want people to be cold and hungry and sick. And so we looked around for a good place for a warming center. And once we found that, it was, well, what hours shall we operate it, and what times of the year should it be open, and how many beds can we possibly do that will keep people safe? And of course, COVID demanded that we expand our space to keep people safe, or to isolate homeless people who were COVID positive but needed a place to recover and recoup and also stay safe. So that was how it came to the county board. And I think that with the mayor especially highlighting this, it finally found its place into the public view of this is a problem for real people who are homeless, and it's all around us. And we have a responsibility as a community to take care of people who find themselves in that situation. So that's how I saw our constituents responding.
Thank you, Commissioner. On on that comment, Mary and Jacob, if you both could talk a little bit more about the programming side of things, because, you know, we see, I think, a lot in the media, and what the public sees is kind of like, well, this is what's happening. But you two have really gotten to know the people who come to Olmsted County searching for these resources. Mary, maybe you can start us off just about the programs available and maybe how it's evolved over the years, and maybe how your jobs have evolved over the years because of this.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, certainly. When we were prior to the housing stability team, we had basically 3 people in adult and family services who were working within housing and addressing homelessness. And I was supervising those 3, but I was supervising several other people and many different programs. And we did not have a lot of staff capacity to actually work out on the streets doing outreach with people. As Jacob had said, he was at the Francis, so attending to the case management needs of the tenants who were living at the Francis. So he had limited ability to do outreach. So we didn't have a lot of devoted staff time to that. So when we moved over to the housing stability team, the 3 staff, along with Trent Flugel in administration, came to the team as well. We had, for me personally, I was able to immerse myself in the world of housing and homelessness. It was initially, I was a little unsure how I was going to fill my time, but lo and behold, my days are quite long now. So plenty of work to be done, but it really has evolved, and the amount of attention that all of us, not just me, but all of us have been able to really give to the issue has just been tremendous. And the more we do, I think the more need we see. You know, we have lots and lots of ideas that come to mind about how to improve collaboration and the response system as a whole. Not to mention just the individual people that we're working with. And we've had the support of the board, and we've had the support of Dave along the way. So it really has evolved just in the short time that we've been a housing stability team. So it's pretty exciting what we've been able to do and where we're headed.
Mary, thank you. Jacob, can you tell us more about the people you come into contact with every day? Because I think something that, you know, happens in many communities are misconceptions about people who are homeless and the situations they go through. Obviously, we respect their privacy, but can you share any stories with us about some of the people you have met, maybe what they've gone through and the success stories that have come out of it?
Yeah, I think that's probably the aspect of my job I enjoy the most and have learned the most from, is getting the opportunity to develop relationships with individuals who have experienced homelessness. And I look back at my time on the Francis as being particularly impactful for me, and getting to know some of the residents there. I know one individual that was there who he identified as being homeless pretty much most of his life, and having been homeless since he had his father had passed away when he was 18 months, and then his mom passed away when he was 18, and had just a really tumultuous childhood. And he identified that it wasn't until he actually came to live at the Francis at the age of 60 that he fully found a place that he could call home. And I think, you know, that's not everyone's experience with being homeless. I think that's, you know, his was a lifelong journey of that, and trying to find what it meant to be in a home and have a community. And that's really what the Francis was for him. It was having people who have walked similar journeys as him, and had endured similar hardship. But you know, when we do presentations about some of the causes of homelessness, I realize that we don't always do justice for that, because really everyone's situation is so nuanced. I can think of even some individuals that have come into the ECHO Center that, you know, yes, it was a loss of their apartment due to like a house fire. That was one that had occurred recently, and they ended up coming to our community because they felt like the work opportunities were far more robust than where it was that they were coming from, being from a more rural area. And so that was one that they realized that with opportunity here, they also needed to find housing and all of that. And so it really is a myriad of things of why people, I think, find themselves in homelessness, or experiencing homelessness. And it's our role to really try to better understand that and walk through that with them and provide support in any ways that we can. I know, like, one of the last people that we had moved into the Francis had been homeless in Rochester for 10 years. And it took about 3 years of engaging with him over time, slowly building a relationship with him, meeting him when he was laying on the ground just under some blankets, not even in a tent, seeing him come and visit with friends and just always having that conversation like, hey, have you thought about housing? Have you kind of taken those next steps, and really walking through him with that process over a long period of time to finally get to the point where he was like, okay, I think I'm ready. And now he's been there and he's been thriving. In fact, like, I think he keeps probably one of the cleanest units. It's been neat to see him have success. He's talking about employment now. And that, I think, couldn't have happened had we not been able to develop a relationship with him and walk through that with him. I think the other thing too is I've just come to learn a lot from folks too. That gentleman I mentioned who said he experienced lifelong homelessness. I feel like I gained so much information and knowledge from him on just through his journey and his willingness to share his experiences with me. And he and I would go and do presentations together, and he could share his story with like nursing groups, and that's just forever made a big impact on me. He's no longer with us, but I just will always remember him and his contribution to our community.
Thank you for sharing that, Jacob. I think, we can get right on to this next subject of the evolution of where we have, come from. Jacob, you are manning the fort over at the ECHO Center, which stands for Empowering Connections and Housing Outreach. And this is really where I think a lot of communities are going, and one that Olmsted County is proud to be going in the right direction is yes, we address the issue in the interim of helping someone get off the streets, have a warm bed to sleep in, and have a warm meal. But then what comes next? What are we doing as a society to help these people be, members of our community, contributing members of our community? And that's where the ECHO Center comes in. Dave, if you want to give us a little brief description maybe about the ECHO Center, how it came to be. Dana, too, I know you've been a part of this project with Dave, just to describe how it came to be, and really also maybe how the community has helped contribute, because I think a lot of us think like, well, my tax dollars are now going to go towards another entity, but how is this helping everyone in the long run?
Yeah, I'll start, and then I'll probably ask for everyone else to chime in, because it's truly been a team effort, I think, as we've started the ECHO Center. And just to kind of give a little bit of background, the ECHO Center is located at 206 4th Street Southeast. It is in the strip mall right next to the Rochester Community Warming Center. And just to do a little bit more historically, Olmsted County acquired that strip mall several years back. No specific plans for it, just knowing that as the needs of the county were going to evolve over time, that is a very strategic location. And so with that strategic investment that the county made, when there was a need for a location for a shelter, we were able to come in and say, hey, we have a location, which is at times the most significant barrier that communities face to finding shelter. Because of that work, we are able to have the Rochester Community Warming Center, our partnership with Catholic Charities. Because of the work of Olmsted County and Catholic Charities, we were able to expand that in 2020 due to COVID. And then what we found is that in early 2021, one of the bays in that strip mall became vacant. The attorney's office that was there moved down the street, and there was a vacant bay. And so with that vacant bay, came an opportunity, I think, for us to say, okay, how do we utilize this strategic location to best continue to serve the clients that we're trying to provide services for? And so looking at it, it's really been an extremely organic process, and one that I think I personally been proud of, maybe in some of the ways that it's been done. It's really kind of trying to see how this works and seeing where it goes. And so what we were able to do is, since it's already county-owned property, we were able to move Jacob and another member of our team in there. I tell the story about how they just took a Friday and decided to paint the walls, because I think that really kind of tells you the attitude of the team and the synergy of the team and the excitement of the team to make this happen. That instead of trying to wait for things to occur and wait to make this place operate, all of them on this call really took it upon themselves to say, this is an opportunity, we want to make the most of it. And so Dana was instrumental in getting it set up. Mary was instrumental in getting it staffed, and now Jake's there every day, instrumental in helping people out. So it was really kind of this grassroots, if I can talk, grassroots approach that you don't see that often in government, to saying, how do we get something together to provide a needed service to those in the community? And so the idea is for people, as they're leaving the warming center in the morning, there's people every day that are wanting to talk to somebody at the ECHO Center. So that's a little bit of the background there. And I know a lot of the more specifics the rest of you can all kind of talk about, and so I'll be quiet and listen to you all with your expertise.
Yeah, I would add that during the pandemic, when the city opened up the day center at Mayo Civic Center, and then the warming center was in that space as well, the housing stability team spent a lot of time in that environment, just providing resources and getting people connected to benefits and trying to get people housed and building relationships, as Jake had described earlier, which is really key to working with this population. And we really felt it was ideal. We had, people were there. They saw us every day. They saw the consistency of us showing up. So it was easier for them to engage and build rapport. So we really felt like after that experience, a service center of sort of the same type of service could be of benefit to our community, but not really having the data to support an investment of a new building or renovated building or whatnot. We decided to just, hey, let's start small. The county board supported the new outreach position, which we've never had at the county, a full-time outreach position. So we decided to take advantage of this space, and we're really hoping to gather some data and really determine, how effective is this and what is the need going forward in our community. We can make some assumptions based on experiences and other data we have, but to really invest in a service center of some type, we need the data to support something like that. So that's really how part of it came to be, the idea, the concept, and having the location right next to the warming center is ideal because we can intervene with people in particular who are first timers at the warming center. So hopefully we can catch them early and divert them from the long-term homelessness. So we're just excited to see where this goes.
And Mary or Jacob, can you tell me a little bit more about those resources that you might have for somebody? Let's, for example, let's say someone comes in, they're without a home at the time. Do we have community partners that we work with to get them connected with for kind of that next step?
Yeah, I think there's a lot of different agencies that we work with. And so when an individual comes in, it really is trying to find out a little bit more about their situation. How did they come to be in our community? If they've been a long-term member, what happened to result in their being without a stable housing option for them? And then really, once we can kind of figure that out, we can point them in a few directions. We always try to encourage individuals to do like a coordinated entry assessment, which if you're experiencing homelessness in our community and all throughout the state, actually, you can do this assessment that would get you on a housing list that then you can get referred to places like the Francis or Salvation Army Castleview or some of the Zumbro Valley programs. And that's a great place to start for folks, because that can really get them on the radar of multiple agencies all at one time. It's also making sure that they know of where they can have their most basic needs met as well. And so, making sure that they know about the shelter options. If it's families, making sure that they know about like Family Promise, or if it's somebody feeling domestic violence, the women's shelter, and then where they can go during the daytime where they can be safe, the landing, Salvation Army, some of those options that they can feel like it's a safe environment. I can get food, water, basic shelter, those types of things. And so we make sure that individuals know about all those resources. And then maybe it's connecting to landlords. And so if they are working, for example, and just maybe need some assistance with first month's rent deposit, we may help them with like an emergency assistance application, or talk with, say, for instance, our partners with like St. Vincent de Paul Society, that's kind of the benevolent society with the Catholic churches here in town. And so it's helping people get connected to resources as best we can based on what their situation may be. And it also could be like, again, direct landlords, or maybe looking at some other housing options like housing support, which are, state supported beds that are kind of all throughout our community, and seeing what options those are. If an individual, say, for instance, struggles with like substance use, it might be getting them connected to have an assessment done for that, and maybe look at treatment options. And so, and then kind of following up with that person. So like Mary had said, if we can catch them early on and we can kind of walk with them through this process and be a consistent individual to work with them, I think that goes a long ways. And also working with other outreach agencies too. I mean, I can think throughout the week I have multiple conversations with other outreach providers, be it at like Zumbro Valley or the Landing, Catholic Charities, and we all try to work together to try to, one, understand the individual stories, try not to duplicate services, but kind of assign point people of like, well, who's kind of working with them and how can we team up to support this individual, especially for some of those who in our community have struggled with homelessness for significant periods of time, where we do have to be a little bit more creative in exploring housing options. So I feel like a lot of what we do is collaboration and connection with outside agencies, because I think we've recognized that we have a role to play, but we are in this together with our community partners to try and support these individuals and families that are walking through this at this time.
And Jacob, the ECHO Center has only been open for a few weeks now. In your mind, is it already a success? Are you seeing a steady stream of people, or could even estimate how many people come to utilize that resource yet?
Yeah, we've seen, I came in the other morning and 3 people were waiting to come in and talk with us. And so I think we're seeing a steady stream. I think as word gets out a little bit more, I think those numbers are going to continue to increase. I know the first day that we were open, I had a gentleman come over from probation who had like the news printout or whatever it was of the ECHO Center, and talked with him and have now since been working with him to try to find housing options. And so I feel like it's maybe a little bit slower right now, but I think as word gets out, as we get connected to the Community Warming Center, I think as I begin to shift duties over to the social worker now at the Francis, and as I transition out of that role, I think we'll be here more often, because I think unfortunately we miss some people right now, because I've gotten notes from like Catholic Charities that some people had stopped by. So I think it's been successful so far with the folks we've been able to connect with, who had heard about us from various places that we didn't even have on our radar. I know a woman came in recently who's just been sleeping in her vehicle and hasn't really utilized other services, just to some level of discomfort there, but she heard about the ECHO Center and was able to stop in, and now we're looking at shelter options for her. And I anticipate that we're going to continue to see that happen as we continue to stay open here and operate.
Thank you, Jacob. Would anyone else, I'd like to also remind the media they can email me questions. They can do the chat as well if you have questions about the ECHO Center or what is currently happening with Olmsted County and Housing Solutions. I'd like to move on now to kind of what the future holds. I think that's an exciting time, because right now things are moving along very nicely and in a positive direction, but this just isn't it. there's a lot in the pipeline that I know the housing department and the commissioners are working closely on to make this affordable housing and just housing solutions a bigger topic in our community. Dave, why don't you talk about maybe some things that are in the pipeline?
Yeah, I'll hit on a couple and then hopefully everybody else can chime in as well. But I think one of the things that I want to talk about, we've talked a lot about resources for those single adults that are experiencing homelessness today. And unfortunately, one of the things that we see more of are families experiencing homelessness. And so as we continue to grow, while we have resources for families, Family Promise, we do hotel vouchers, we work with other partners, really trying to focus on how do we increase that work with families and then those youth, those 16 to 24-year-olds, for whatever reason, home is not a viable option for them. And because of, being young and maybe not having some of those life experiences and work history, are really struggling to get through school, to make ends meet. So really, as we kind of move forward, one of the things that I know we'll be seeing this year is, in large part, thanks to the work of the Olmsted County Board and lobbying with the Association for Minnesota Counties and other agencies. This past year at the legislature, there was a $20 million bill passed that directly allocates funding to cities or to counties to look at youth and family homelessness. So what that means for us is, starting in July of 2022, we're going to start seeing $600,000 a year coming directly into Olmsted County to address issues around youth and family homelessness. So as we start to continue our efforts, I think, around the ECHO Center and that assistance we're providing for single adults, and continuing to open up more housing options for them, really starting to work more with some of those families and some of those youth as well, because we know that, again, every story is an individual story and every situation requires an individual intervention.
Commissioner Podulke?
Yeah, I'd like to just, it's possible that some of the media don't know this particular number, but Melissa Brandt, who works with the Rochester Public Schools, has identified sometimes as many as 300 Rochester students who are homeless. As Dave mentioned, that younger group of people. So that means they're couch surfing or living in their cars, trying to get by. That's hard enough to do, and then try to grow up at the same time. So that's a group that we need to serve. I wanted to just mention two things that I've learned as the board becomes educated about homelessness. Paul, and I can't remember his last name, from the Twin Cities, has stressed to us over and over that homelessness needs to be one time and brief. And that way it doesn't become a habitual problem. So we have to identify people and find a way to serve them. The other thing that we learned, which is interesting, is that it used to be people moved from the streets to a shelter to permanent housing. But actually that philosophy has changed now. We found that people work better if we move from streets to hotels to permanent housing. That rather than using the shelter each night and wandering around in the day, and and by hotels we can mean that, we have provided rooms for people to go to, especially families it's very vulnerable for kids to be in a shelter with a lot of adults they don't know. So moving from the streets to a hotel where there's actually a door that locks and it's your spot helps people move on to making decisions about permanent housing. So that's two. I'm sure we've learned a lot more things, but those were sort of points that for me at least, to pivot on and learn from. And now let's see what we can do, that we know that we need to do things differently from what we had in the past. And if there's one thing that I've learned about our HRA housing department, they are flexible and open to all kinds of ideas and very creative and very compassionate as well.
I've learned that very quickly too. We're talking also about new buildings popping up throughout the area, throughout Olmsted County, that will help serve this population. David or Dana, can you tell us a little bit more about Center City Housing and that project that's just about to have a grand opening soon?
Yeah, this has been a unique partnership that Olmsted County has had with Center City Housing. So back in 2019, but all things pre-pandemic kind of become a blur. Back in 2019, Olmsted County identified a parcel at 1025 Maywood Road. So it's right across the street from the former Crossroads College that had a county service building there, but was really underutilized. And so as we looked at it, it was a 3-acre site. And so in partnership with our facilities department within Olmsted County, we really looked at what could be the future of that site. And so the county board did a concept planning work for that site in early 2020 and really found that kind of the best fit for that was to repurpose that site for housing. And as kind of a first phase, to work with Center City Housing to find housing for people who are experiencing serious and persistent mental illnesses. And so next Tuesday, I believe, yes, it's Tuesday, October 26th at 1 p.m., Center City Housing will be hosting a grand opening for the phase 1 of the Mayowood Apartments. And so for us, I think that's been an exciting collaboration where, we've utilized an underutilized parcel in the community that was really just sitting as empty, that had no purpose. And to create housing there for some of our vulnerable population has just been a great win-win for us. And I think as we move to the future, whether those partnerships are with the faith community, with other county or publicly owned parcels with the city, really trying to find some of those creative solutions for locations for housing, just knowing that in order to make things work, we have to be as creative and innovative as possible.
And I think too, Dave, it's important to note the people who are going to be living at Mayowood Apartments, they're also going to be contributing to their rent there. This isn't just a free stay. It's for, I think we all have to remember that so many people want to get off the ground. They need that resource and that next step to be successful. Commissioner Podulke, you mentioned that, going from the street to a hotel can be of great service to helping someone get back on their feet. I can only imagine, Dave, what an apartment of their own could do for them.
Yeah, and it's literally life-changing. I think for people to have that place to call home, to have that home base, I know we've talked about this already, but it really does, and for somebody who hasn't had that stable place to call home, for somebody who's been moving around, that's been transient, that has, not had that, to be able to be there and thrive and to know where I'm going to be living next week, next month, next year, begins to allow you to work on all of the other things in your life that you want to work on. I think one of the things that we forget is how much work it is to be experiencing homelessness, how much work it is every day just to get your basic needs met if you're not sure where those are going to come from. And so for us, that's kind of one of the things that once we can kind of hit on some of those, then we can start to dig a little bit deeper and try to find some of those underlying issues.
Jacob Radtke, we have a question from Randy Peterson. This might be for Mary O'Neill as well. Randy Peterson from the Post Bulletin is asking, what's the average count at the warming center each night, and what is the current number of beds available?
Yeah, I can answer that. They have been averaging, I would say, in the low 30s for their census each night. That has gone up a little bit recently, probably likely because of the colder weather. And their capacity right now, I believe, is 42 beds, and that still allows for the social distancing that's recommended in that type of space for COVID.
Mary, what would a person do then, especially because of COVID and now that it's getting colder and like you mentioned, we're seeing an increase in people finding shelter. What are the other resources that we can maybe assist them with if there just isn't the space available, or if it is, like you said, like a family?
Yes, Family Promise, they opened their site-based shelter earlier this year, so they do have some capacity now in that building. They also help with, I believe, some hotel vouchers on occasions. So that's a nice resource for families. We have partnered also with like our internal partners at the county, Child and Family Services, if somebody is in real need, if there is a child protection concern, that kind of thing. We have also supported families in hotels on occasion. Dorothy Day is still open, so they certainly have some capacity as well. I believe they might be at about 23 bed. Are they up to 23, Jacob? Do you know?
I believe 23 is the max that they can have there.
Yes.
Yep. And they do sometimes have on occasion historically allowed for families.
Yes. So we do still see some need for shelter, particularly for the families. So despite the options that we do have, there is still need out there.
You know, like when I talked with, I was just gonna say,
go ahead.
when I talked with the Family Promise, their intake worker just last week, I mean, they mentioned that they had, I think, 17 families on their wait list right now, which is a pretty large number when we look at our community as a whole. So, yeah.
And Dave and Dana, when you both are working on developing these different projects and working with all of these different partners and bring it to the Board of Commissioners, you know, what has been kind of the process and how long would something like this take? Because personally, I feel like the ECHO Center was pretty quick in happening, and I think, you know, we responded pretty well given the circumstances of our community with COVID.
Yeah, you know, I think one of the things we've been very blessed is that the county board has given us kind of the ability to be quick. They've given us some latitude and the trust, and so we can make some of those decisions and make some of those things happen quickly. I'll let Dana talk maybe a little bit more about the process of opening the ECHO Center, because she was the one that really did a lot of that work and getting that ready.
Hello. So for me, it's just they say this is what we're doing, and I get the opportunity to kind of run with it. The commissioners really have put a lot of trust in the housing department and the housing stability team, where we know, you know, our goal is to build relationships with people and to give them resources they need to get off the ground and start moving forward. So we were able to come in, and we have computers now that are going to be out there in the next couple of days where people can come in and create their resumes, complete job applications, start applying for different benefits as well. Just to give people an option for technology is a big deal, because we are in a world of technology. So being able to provide that, and the county has been so wonderful in getting internet in there and making the building a nice, comfortable place for us to land, and, you know, having a cup of coffee with someone sitting down and saying, all right, let me hear your story. I want to get to know you, and giving people a nice, comfortable place to build those relationships with our staff has been vital. So really having the latitude and the trust from the county board to be able to come in and say, all right, we're going to get a coffee maker, and we're going to get some water, and we're going to get computers and nice comfy chairs for people to come in and start sitting down and talking to our team to build those relationships. It doesn't happen overnight with anyone, but it's something that's important for people to have that luxury to move forward and to be comfortable to start making progress in their life.
Absolutely.
And so,
Commissioner,
if I could add on to what Dana said, that one of the reasons the county board is so nimble is because we requested of the state that they allow the county board to also be the HRA board along with one consumer member. So we don't have to go to another board to to make any sort of policy or changes with HRA. We can do it ourselves. And I think that has been a great help, and we're very grateful to the state for giving us that opportunity.
That's an interesting note. I didn't know that, Commissioner. Thank you. Randy Peterson has another good question. Is there a plan to continue operating the warming center after this winter? If it closes for the warmer months, will the ECHO Center remain open, or will the team transition into another model for the summer? So we're kind of looking ahead towards the future here.
I am proud to announce that there are no plans to close the warming center. In fact, I think one of the things that we need to do is change the name, because as we started the warming center, it really truly was something that we talked about for 5 months of the year. So the idea when we started this, if you go back just 2 years ago, we didn't have an every night shelter at all in Olmsted County that was open to anyone. And so we went from that to the warming center, which was supposed to be 5 months, to now really seeing the need in the community, being able to have that open daily. And so the plan is moving forward that the warming center is open year round. Again, shelter isn't where we want to move people, that is the end of the continuum. And in order to work with folks and build out that continuum from shelter, hopefully we can quickly move them into that hotel, that environment, or that kind of individualized housing environment, and really start to work with them. But moving forward, the plan right now is to continue to operate the warming center nightly.
Thank you, David. I'd like to give a moment for any of our media guests to have any questions asked. I'd also like to take one more round with everybody to just kind of give us your final thoughts on the position that the county is in right now when it comes to our county in the state of Minnesota and where we sit. Are you proud? Are you proud of where we're at? And do you think we have even more room for improvement? Don't all jump in at once.
Well, I think we deserve to be proud of what we've done and accomplished, and we, of course, aren't finished. This is a thing that continues to evolve and grow, and as we learn how to serve people better and how to identify them and what people need, the part that I'm so pleased is that we give people a chance to get their lives back. And as Jacob said, if you have 100 homeless people, you have 100 different stories. Everybody comes to this place in their life from a different path, and we need to find out how to get them back on their path.
Yeah, and what can we do? This is another question. What can we do as a community to help our people in the community who are homeless? What can the public do?
I'm not sure, except to say to support us and understand that we're serving people who are in need, and give us some space to do that. And I think the public doesn't really want to see homeless people, so that's a hard concept for us to deal with. If you don't see a problem, it must not exist. And so the public also has to come to an awareness that this is a chronic problem and it's getting worse everywhere.
Mm-hmm. And everybody has a different story, like you mentioned, Jacob.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And I think before I started this and learned about the outreach that I'd be doing at the Francis, I didn't realize that a part of that outreach was going to be education and advocacy. So I feel like as I began to learn more about homelessness and learn about people's experiences, it really has transitioned into educating individuals and providing opportunities for people who have experienced homelessness to share their stories. So I feel like as a community, if we can understand what individuals have walked through, what they do walk through when they do experience homelessness, like has been shared of, just how really it is their main job to survive, to go from a shelter to a day center or wherever that may be, and just the toll and trauma that that can have on an individual or family. I think especially of children who are walking through that, and how I think as a community, the better we can do at understanding that, and also taking ownership of that, as well as, you know, realizing that these are community members, these are neighbors, these are people who are vital to our community, and the best we can to take care of these individuals is going to make us all that much better of a thriving community. And I feel really proud that, you know, even in the 4.5 years that I've been doing this, I've seen our homeless response system really grow, and it's become far more robust than it was even 2 years ago, like Dave said, with the warming center and with day center options we've had, with new agencies popping up and taking on leadership roles and responding to needs of individuals and families and youth. So I feel really encouraged. I would also say that, you know, affordable housing options, especially ones that are willing to take chances on people who maybe have had less than squeaky clean rental histories, all that kind of stuff. The more opportunities we can provide for folks, we're going to see, I think, a reduced number of homeless individuals. But that takes a willingness on the part of investors, developers, county, NGOs, all those types of agencies to come to the table and see this as our collective concern. So, and realize that it's just we're very similar to these individuals. I think that's the thing I've learned too, is, you know, when the day is done, we're not that dissimilar. And I'm been always surprised at, like, oh, that their line of thinking is not that different than my own line of thinking. And I've been fortunate to have had some people around me to encourage coping skills and that kind of stuff. But we're just very similar, I think, is what I've come to learn. So I think that empathy and understanding is huge. And we've come a long way.
That's amazing. Thank you, Jacob. Anyone else? David, final thoughts?
No, I think for us as a community, to understand that homelessness is an issue, it has been an issue, and unfortunately, it probably will continue to be an issue. But I think to, you know, with our goal of trying to make this rare brief in one time for as many people as possible, to have a system in place where we can address some of the needs, whether it's a single adult or if it's a young family or if it's somebody who's struggling to finish high school, to have some options for them. And we're so much further along than we were. But, you know, last year I remember a note from my wife works in the school district, and she was made aware of a family who went to school with my daughters, and they didn't have a place to sleep that night, and trying to see what the resources were. And so for me, as my role within housing here in Olmsted County, that really hit home to me that there's still more work to do. And I'm extraordinarily proud of our team and how far we've come. And I think as we start to get some of the data in, it really does start to say that we are starting to see a positive impact, but there's still more work to do. And I'm just proud that I get to work with all of you to continue to do that.
Absolutely. Anybody else? Otherwise, we can wrap things up. All right. Well, I would like to thank our presenters from Olmsted County, the Housing Department, Commissioner Podulke, for taking the time today to give us an update on homelessness and housing solutions in the county. Our friends with the media, we invite you following this meeting to come to the ECHO Center and come to the Rochester Community Warming Center for a tour for any future or any other interviews that you would like to do. And also note that this recording will be now posted onto the Olmsted County website as well for future viewing. So with that, again, we'd like to say thank you, and thank you for your time, presenters.
Thank you.
Thank you.